Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo, Senior Editor here at thekoalition.com, and welcome to a brand new episode of TK Spotlight, where I bring on phenomenal individuals from throughout the gaming industry and the various corners of the internet, and we talk a little bit about the good that they've done through their craft and a lot of the other cool stuff that they've done for a lot of people out there. Today, my special guest is pro Street Fighter player, a competitive gamer for many, many years. He's part of Team Echo Fox right now, Mr. Justin Wong. Justin, what's happening? How you doing?
What's up? I'm just dealing with a little bit jet lag. Just came back from Asia and then have to go back to Asia tomorrow. So, yeah, just hanging in there.
Nice. That's pretty cool. You were competing in Asia, correct? You went over to China, I think it was?
No, I was in Malaysia doing like a TV show type of thing. So then this time I'm going to go back to Japan for Evo Japan at the end of the month.
That is a lot of traveling through plane. I can only imagine the jet lag that what you're going through now. Which is pretty crazy.
I just been watching a lot of anime, making sure I get sleep. Sometimes I sleep for like 3 hours, 4 hours every time because of the jet lag. But I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Definitely. At least you get some sleep in there. You gotta get prepped up and stuff before you gotta go to work, which is always cool.
Yeah, pretty much.
So let's talk a little bit about some of your career stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Street Fighter. You've been a professional gamer for many years, like over a decade, correct?
I would say 17 years I have been doing tournaments, going to competitions. So I would say I've been been in the scene for the fighting game community for 17 years.
Yeah, you're going almost on the double decade mark, which is pretty cool. I mean, since you started way back when, again, compared to now, has things, whether it's competition or just being part of the scene and doing stuff, has that gotten easier with time?
I would say just doing stuff gotten easier. Like I know like the flow chart. I know how to just be myself and everything. The only thing hard is obviously more people join, so the competition's a lot harder these days, and the prizes are higher stake. But besides that, everything has still been like the chill, the same loving community, and we just love video games. Which is great. I mean, since you mentioned new people joining up the scene, new people joining up with competitions and stuff, what is some of the stuff that maybe you see, like a lot of newcomers, a lot of new players that jump into tournaments or try to go and, be part of various different tournaments around the United States? What is the one thing that you feel like they have to deal with now that maybe you didn't have to deal with back then when you were on the come up? I would say they have to travel a lot more because back in the day, we have tournaments, but they're local, so they're very small. But now there's major, at least 2 to 3 major tournaments a month. So that's at least minimum. You're flying out of the state / country 2 to 3 times a month to play Street Fighter or just other fighting games. So I would say if you're young, you just finished school and your parents are still iffy about the whole gaming thing. You still have young people will still have to deal with stuff like that. Do you think that social media has really been a good contributing factor to a lot of the stuff, whether good or bad, for new players or new and up-and-coming people and personalities in the competitive scene? I think social media is very good for our community because most people share strategies, combos, tech on social media because these days recently they just announced that Shoryuken.com forums are closing down, and that's where people used to share. Yeah, that's where people used to share information. When I was playing a lot. When I was going on the come up, but now it's shutting down, and people are really putting all their information out there on Twitter and Facebook. So I would say it's pretty nice to have social media now because it's easier to gain access to all these type of new ways of learning the game. Which is always good. Yeah, definitely. I mean, another thing I want to know is that, throughout your career leading up to this point now almost over 15 to 17 years of competition that you've been involved with, has being able to either place high in different tournaments or just finally be able to travel out to different countries for competition, has it allowed you in various different moments to do things that maybe that you wanted to do early in your career that just wasn't possible? I guess earlier in my career, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that this is fun, playing video games, traveling around the world, meeting people that I cannot talk to, but we can speak with video games. That's really fun. I would say now, since I'm older, I'm able to appreciate more things such as trying out their new food, culture, tourism, because before I didn't have a thing for it. I didn't really care for it. I just wanted to play. But now I wanted to play and also just sightsee and, experience what this country has to offer. Why is it so different from America? So I would say that's like the main difference.
Has that really enabled, or at least has that been a good complement to your love of fighting games? Like being able to kind of get away from gaming or competition just for a second to look at other stuff and then come back with like a fresh mind or a fresh appreciation for something?
No, I don't think it helps me because technically I could still be just playing Street Fighter and focusing on the competition, but it's just that I just want to check out the new sites, just new things, experience new memories, and for all the people that follow me on social media, I want to give them a tour on what's like to be in X country because it's really rare for people to kind of leave their turf, right? Like it's hard. So this is literally like once of a lifetime opportunity where I'm just able to go to all these vacation spots because I play Street Fighter.
Does that ever get like really surreal to you, or like to the point where it's like it feels like you're dreaming, or maybe you didn't think like this would be something that would be possible years ago?
Oh, 100%. I definitely don't think that it was possible years ago. Like I've been invited to like Japan, Australia, like Mexico, like back in the day, and I went, but now like I'm going to Malaysia, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Let's throw some Argentina in there, Spain, like Brazil, or
A whole
Chile.
world tour, practically.
Yeah, literally like the World Warrior tour. Like it's just been so awesome because the last 3 years I definitely like killed my passport and I had to get a new one because I ran out of pages.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, when you're traveling to all these different countries and pretty much circumnavigating the entire world at this point, playing Street Fighter, doing what you love, do you notice like a lot of differences and a lot of ebbs and flows within the competition between all the different regions you've been to?
Yeah, because when you go to different regions, obviously their top players are different, and when their top players are different, that means their tier lists are different. So let's say in America, like our best players are a Karen and a Guile player, so a lot more people will be playing those characters. But when you go to like let's say Europe, for example, there's way more Laura players, and Japan has way more Rashid players. Like it really depends on who's the best players are in their region, because that will determine like their community, like in terms of like what they use and how they think about the game. And it's really cool because it's a different outlook. It's literally like you're like real fighting. Like you're actually fighting like different type of like people and different skill set, like a different martial artist every time when you're traveling to these different countries to play Street Fighter.
Yeah, have you ever felt like whenever you go to different areas and you notice things like that you've really had to adapt, maybe change up your character more often in one place and maybe not so much in another? Has there been like things that you've had to think about or you've had to adjust on the fly once you get there and you see the competition that's ahead of you?
Yeah, I would say like in Japan, since Japan is more aggressive in terms of play style, I would have to like bump up my defense. While in Europe's really more a defensive play style, so I would have to bump up my offense. So it really depends. Like you really want to keep tabs on like each scene, each community, each player to see what kind of player they are, so you can adjust accordingly and have the best chance to win.
Which do you feel like is the region or the place that you've had to go to for competition where you feel like you had to put in the most work to really type of, adapt or even just, see and kind of like, exploit different weaknesses in your, other players' play style when you're in competition? Like, is there one particular area that's really made you work harder than most?
Yes, I would say Japan, just because like they literally breathe and want to become the best. Like it doesn't have to be a Daigo or Torpedo. It literally is everyone there. Like I feel like most places people just like to be part of the community and have fun and just say, hey, I went to this convention this past weekend and it was a blast. I met some new friends and I played some games. It's cool. Like it's a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in Japan, everyone tries to be the best. So when I was in Japan in September, and I was just playing at this place called Esports Square, literally, like, there was probably over 200 players, and I could recognize at least 70 of the players as top players or as people that I've seen at tournaments as Evo or CEO. And
a lot of colleagues.
and they were all just grinding it out, like just playing, like they're not scared of showing like their hand to like their rivals so they could get an upper hand. They just want to just play at their best, even at casuals, and just get better. And it was a blast because I never had so much fun playing Street Fighter before until I was there, because there was so much access to just different competition at very high level.
So that requires a lot of discipline, I can imagine, especially at a high level when you're making that top 8, top 32 in some of these big tournaments. Have you ever felt like being within that environment, especially so frequently as you have been, have you ever felt like you've gained something or have kind of looked at something a different way just by being within that atmosphere so much?
Yeah, pretty much just being in the atmosphere and having exposure to it, you just get better, right? You just have a different outlook at the game. You understand things better. It's just amazing. Like, I wish I could just play in Japan like every single day and just get better and don't have to worry about like showing my hand, because like everyone just wants to get better, and I just love that.
That seems like it's a really big grind, like every day. I can imagine like how crazy it would get and stuff. But let's talk a little bit about some of the games that you've competed in throughout the years. Again, you've big player, a world-renowned player in Street Fighter. You've done stuff, obviously, with Marvel vs. Capcom or the Versus series. There's been a number of different games where you've placed high on the was it the actual competition list, or just, you know, the top 8, top 3, etc. I mean, for you personally, whether it's one specific game or just a series, you know, outside of obviously Street Fighter, what do you feel like, you know, is the one game that you think is going to be, you know, something that obviously years down the line you're always going to be playing, or that you always feel like you're going to be working your hardest whenever you go to competitions?
Well, for our like scene, like every time like a developer puts out a new game, like it could replace it. So let's say, for example, like you had the Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I was like known as like the best of all time for the game, but then Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out, and I was always really good at that game. I won an Evo for that game. And then now it got replaced with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which is like, this is like their like first year officially, finally.
Yeah.
So, you know, it really depends on if this game can make it to Evo, or will it be accepted from like really big tournaments, because like it's really hard to juggle multiple games these days because there's so much competition. So like if you're like, I play Street Fighter 5, like I main Street Fighter 5. And because the competition is so fierce, and there's over like 100 players that can technically win the tournament, like that's how like awesome like the competition is. Yeah. It's really hard to just like go to like a different game and just be like, you know what, I want to play this game too and be like the best. So you kind of have to be very picky and choosy. I would definitely say that one game I'm looking forward to play for a really long time is probably Dragon Ball Fighters.
Yeah.
Because growing up, I love Dragon Ball. You know, I used to go to Chinatown to buy those bootleg VHS tapes for $6 to watch like the Cell Saga and the Majin Buu Saga. So, and then finally they made like a game that fits like a real fighting game, because obviously every other Dragon Ball game was more of like a friendly, casual fan service game that people
more like an action game
love to buy. Yeah. So now we have Dragon Ball Fighters, which looks literally like a real fighting game, and everyone in the community is loving it and they want to play it, and I think that's the game that I'm really excited for.
So let me ask you this, because that's an interesting point that you bring up, where now these days, again, we're seeing it with Dragon Ball Fighters, we're seeing it with Injustice and Injustice 2, etc., and other games that have been made that are not necessarily legacy fighting games, not like the Street Fighters or the Tekkens or the Guilty Gears, etc., but other types of properties that are really taking what worked within the fighting genre and then obviously improving upon or changing it up, and then showing up at these competitions like Evo or any other like big competition and stuff. What do you think it is for that a lot of these developers, a lot of these different game studios need to pay attention to, or really kind of take from some of these games in order to make good franchises to help diversify the pool of games that people could compete in?
I would say like to be honest, I feel like a lot of like companies have been taking the standard flowchart of what Capcom's doing in terms of like the Pro Tour. So after the Capcom Pro Tour came out, like everyone was so into it. Everyone traveled to play in it because they want to be in the Capcom finals, because Capcom was supporting the fighting community. So now you had like the Tekken Pro Tour, Injustice Pro Tour. You even had the Pokken Tour. Like you had so many tours just because of the Capcom model. But what I really like is that I really like the fact that all the companies are taking like that model and putting putting effort into just like, oh yeah, the competitive scene is out there. They're not just a bunch of casual gamers, and they make our game look good. And having these tournaments and having that like recognition that like, okay, if you win this tournament, you won like an official Capcom or official Warner Brothers tournament. That's just really nice, and I think that's what's really good, and that's what helps. That's what they're doing. That's helping the fighting game community.
So let me ask you this then, as a good offshoot of that. What is it that makes a good competitive fighter? Because we have obviously a much more diverse pool of games to get involved with now these days than it was back in like the mid or late 90s. I mean, there's more than just Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken now at this point. Like you mentioned, we have Pokken, we have Injustice. Heck, I'll even throw in Dissidia Final Fantasy, which is another game coming out soon at the time we're recording this episode. What is it that most of those games that really get big or get those scenes that there's a lot of competition, a lot of big events filled with big prize pools, what is the one thing that they all have in common?
For me, like I just want a fighting game that I can just go online, has training mode and has versus mode. Like that's all I need for myself. But I know everyone else is different, and everyone else would rather they like the content that's in the game, right? They like single player content, like random content, like shit, like just like trial modes, challenges, and I think that's what like makes the game really good. So like Injustice 2 has like really good like netcode,
definitely
very good training options. It visually looks good, like awesome characters, and then you could gain your skins from like the single player content. Like people love that. And Tekken, like the same thing, very good story mode. You're able to get all this fight money to like buy like stuff from the shop for your character, to customize your characters, make your own characters. People love that. And just like looking at like what Dragon Ball's been like teasing, like in terms of Bandai Namco, they're like the lobby system looks really cool, like different Dragon Ball like color skins, and like you could just imagine all the stuff that they're gonna put in to make people just like want to get the game and think about playing this competitively.
Yeah, I think a game like Dragon Ball FighterZ, besides playing on the fandom for something like DBZ or anime fans and stuff, it has a lot of those different things that we've always heard talk about for various different fighters, whether it was Street Fighter or otherwise, that again just people just enjoy. It's like a lot of those little details that add up, and that just has a lot of people just jump onto the game that they have a really good appreciation for it. But I want to know one thing about you, especially with all the games that you've been competitive in and games that you played throughout the years. What is it about you, or what is it that you look for when you're deciding on what type of character or what type of way you want to go about competing in a particular game? Whether it's choosing a specific character, using a specific strategy, what is the one thing that you kind of look for in yourself, or at least what you look for when you first touch a game when you're playing it for the first time?
So they have to make sure that there is a character that looks really cool. I mostly like to pick female characters, so you have to have a lot of females in the game, because I usually am attracted to like those female characters because of how fast and strong they are. So like for example, you have like Chun-Li,
your main, which has been a big one.
Yeah, so like they're like really like fast, agile, and like they hit hard at the same time, right? So you need those characters in those games because I would really get into it. And also, I don't know, like after I play like 10, 20 games, I'll know if I really like this game, it's fun, and it's just for me. So like I was playing Killer Instinct, and Killer Instinct doesn't really have like those like really cutesy looking girls. They're more serious, right? Because there's like vampires, werewolves,
more hardcore.
Yeah, hardcore. So like when the game first came out, there was only 6 characters, and only female character was Orchid. I didn't really like Orchid, and so I tried other characters, and they had Saberwolf, and I fell in love with Saberwolf because he was he was such a badass. Like he was so cool. And he reminded me of Wolverine, and I really like Wolverine. And I started playing the game, and I had such a blast, and the netcode was really good. And I got into it, and I got into the competitive scene, and I wanted to get really good at it. And I just kept playing and playing and playing. So it's just one of those things that, like, as long as you have a character in there for me that's like that I can just like resonate with, I'm playing the game.
So let me ask you the flip side of that then. Has there ever really been a game where you've gone through that, or you've like messed around with it, took it for a test drive, etc., and it just didn't click? Or like when you really wanted to get into it for competition purposes and just things just weren't working out that you had to drop it? Was there ever a moment like that?
So it's really rare because even like I just love like fighting games in general. So like even when I play Smash Brothers, like I can find characters in there that really suits me. I would say the only game that I can think of at the moment that I really don't resonate well with at the moment is the new game Fighting EX Layer.
Yeah.
So they came out with a beta, and I played the beta, and I didn't like any of the characters. Like I love the EX series, and the characters I used to play in EX series were like Blair, Sharon from EX1, EX2, and those two didn't come back for this one, so they only had like Garuda, Alan, Kyrie, like some Hokuto clone, and I didn't like any of that. Like I wasn't really a fan. Like it was fun playing the game, but there wasn't a character that I was like, yeah, I really like this character and I'm gonna stick with it. So I kind of just played it like 10 games, and I just kind of like turned it off and put back Street Fighter on. So I mean, I need the waifu. You gotta put the waifu in there to get me involved. So if they put back in Blair or Sharon, I'll probably give it another chance.
Yeah, you got to have those waifus. Everybody loves the waifus. They're always good. But
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to know also, now that you're a part of Echo Fox, you're a member there, you're playing Street Fighter or just fighting games in general for competition alongside that team. Has being part of a team like Echo Fox really changed your perception or changed up some of your outlook in how you approach competition or your experience, going through different events?
Yeah, I would say it's like obviously it's nice to have a sponsor because now in terms of just like flight travel, you don't have to worry about that, right? So that's cool.
Yeah.
But now you have like the weight of like on your shoulders because now you have to like put yourself out there, make sure you represent the team very well.
You gotta deliver.
You gotta deliver, right? You gotta like always wear your jerseys. You have to like make sure you don't want to disappoint them, right? So that's like probably like very like stressful because when you think about it, I started playing like I didn't say, hey, when I grow up I want to be like a video game champion or pro player. This was a hobby. Like I started as a hobby, while like the newer generation could think of it as like, oh, I want to try to become a pro player. Like so, when I first got signed and have to like think about it, like I think I put a lot of stress on my mind. Like it was very stressful. Just because, like, you're representing someone besides yourself. You don't want to disappoint them. It's like your homie, right? And you don't want to make your homie feel bad because you made a wrong decision.
That's your man. It's like you got to do good by him.
Exactly. So there was stress when I first signed to a team, but now it's more like casual because like I feel like now because of social media, like I'm more than just a pro player. Like people look at me as like also like a personality, a role model. So like I'm always constantly just like giving tips to people and just being myself and just being that really nice person. So also and so Echo Fox loves that, and I really like them too because they've been so supportive with whatever I want to do, and anytime like they want me to do something, I'm always down. I'm always there. So it's a really good relationship, and I don't want to replace that.
Which is good, which I can imagine now, besides the trips and everything else, being able to at least do more on top of what you already know, on top of what you already have been exposed to for so long. I feel like it could obviously be satisfying and be gratifying in some regard. But has there ever been a point where you felt like maybe the business aspect and your passion for, the craft, for fighting games, for competition stuff, has that ever like clashed at any point or maybe kind of been at odds at some point?
I would say there has been times because sometimes you just want to play fighting games. You just want to play video games, right? You don't want to think about like doing like just like beat a pro challenges at like PAX or stuff like that. Like you just want to play, and you don't want to have like that obligation. But I mean, that's part of it, right? You can't have you can't have it for free. You need to work for it, and I understand. That's what I understood most about it. Like when I first started. So now it's more of like yeah, I know like some aspects are is like a job, but I have fun with it because if you think about it, it's not like I'm sitting in the office, doing like software engineer work or like doing some testing and be bored.
Yeah.
Like this is still fun. It's still really fun.
Which is good.
So doing all this stuff is really fun. You have fun with it, and and it's probably like only like not too much of your time. It's not 40 hours a week, so I actually have no reason to complain.
So as someone that has exposure and has experience and has knowledge and wisdom on both sides of the spectrum, as someone that was just doing this as a hobby that, came from pretty much from the ground up on the scene, and then now as someone that's a sponsored player that's traveling the world in competitions and doing all these different things, do you feel like for some people, or just in general, it maybe, do you feel like, you need to get to that point where you get sponsored by a team or you get put out there by some organization in order to really experience the best that this craft or that this profession has to offer, or at least the competition aspect of things?
I mean, it's definitely easier now to get sponsored, to get noticed, to just get famous, or like internet famous. So I think it's way easier now these days, just because of the ways people can get access to this information. Like back then, yeah, you have to wait for like the DVDs to come out, or you gotta like be on shoryuken.com for the forums to look for the results at like 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now it's like, okay, everything's on Twitch. Like it'll get uploaded to YouTube right away. So all the social media hashtags, like it's very easy to get like sponsored. Like I feel like these days, like at least like 7 players get sponsored a month, which is awesome because those are 7 really good players, right? It's not like everyone has to get sponsored, and I think it's just much easier to just get anywhere in the fighting community. But getting to that status where you're in like that top 1 percentile in terms of just like, okay, like he's like, that's the top guy, that's the hard part. Like breaking that barrier is really, really hard.
True. I can imagine, especially with what's required, not just skill-wise in a lot of these games. Again, you would know this. You've played so many games and so many competitions, been exposed to so many players. Like that bar, just that par that people have to reach, I can imagine could be really difficult. So as someone, though, that has experienced all this stuff, and is someone that is also a coder and stuff, and that has also played other games outside of fighting games, because I've seen you play a couple different things here and there, maybe not competition-wise, but just on for fun. What do you want to see more of in the game industry, or even in the fighting game scene, more of, as we move forward through 2018 into the years afterwards?
Let's see. So I usually kind of like compare the fighting community as like the gaming version of WWE.
Yeah, true.
So we have like the drama, we have like the personalities, we have
the
like
storylines,
the storylines and everything. I prefer to have the younger players that's coming up, like the punks, the knuckledoos, the smugs, to like just kind of like step their game up in terms of just the way they present themselves, because like they're shy. Like obviously they're shy. They like to joke around, but like in terms of just like, I guess being like a more aware in social media, like that would be better, because it'll bring the next generation up, because they're going to be like the future, right? So they have to like raise the future generation, how like me, Alex, Vi are doing like right now. Like we're trying to help these players, the current young players, to like, okay, yeah, this is how it is. This is what you could do to do better. You want to build that future for yourself. So I want them to start thinking about like, okay, eventually we have to do what they're doing now. So, get that wisdom in their head.
That brings up a good point that I want to ask about before we start to wrap everything up. I mean, do you feel like the etiquette or the professionalism or just the way that one conducts themselves, whether it's in the fighting game community or otherwise, just as someone that's a competitor, someone that's considered that some people would look at as an esports athlete or anything of the sort, do you feel like that's important, especially when you want to reach up to that type of echelon that you guys are aiming for?
Yeah, especially because like now, like people are more sensitive and stuff in general, right? Like we went from like the rated R era to like the PG era,
True.
Right?
The Attitude era to the PG era.
Yeah, so because of that, like, you have to be mindful of what you say. Like a lot of times when when a top player says something controversial, it kind of blows up. Like it's bad. So you got to be careful what you say. And obviously, when you're starting out, you get your phone the first time. You start chatting. You start messaging. You know, you
wild
start
out.
typing. Yeah, you start typing broken English. You start typing like LOL, or you put like numbers as like like as if for like the word two. You know, like you gotta be mindful about stuff like that, because obviously not everyone's like that, right? So like when I grew up, I used to type like that, and when I look back at it, I'm like, damn, that was so childish for me. So I'm trying to make sure that people don't follow that same footsteps.
Now, unfortunately, some people tend to think sometimes that maybe that might change the identity of some of these players, or just the identity of the scene. Do you ever feel like, just being mindful of stuff like that, making the extra effort to be a little bit more professional or mindful of how you conduct yourself at events or at social media? Do you think that would fundamentally change the scene or make it lose its identity, like some people claim?
I wouldn't say it'll change the identity or like the community. It'll just like the only thing it will change is like yourself personally. So like I would say back in the day, like I used to curse like a lot, but now I don't curse at all. But I think that's a good thing, because obviously cursing is bad, and I really like that I don't curse anymore. So it's just really nice, and a nice like feeling that it like a F-bomb won't just like slip out out of nowhere. So it's nice. Like so I would say the only thing bad about it is that people try a little too hard to be perfect, and I think that's bad, because then you're thinking too much, and you're not really being yourself, and you might sound like a robot instead of just being more of like a casual flow in the conversation. So I think right now it's just people just have to like kind of like be watchul, because I feel like there's a lot of kids coming to the scene. So
True.
obviously, if you want kids to stay and you want the younger generation to stay, and the parents, if I was a parent and I see like this guy that you look up to just like cursing and saying all this like racist stuff, I definitely like, oh, you're banned from watching this, from being part of it at all. So that's what I'm kind of like thinking about.
I think it's important. Yeah, I think there's some good points. And I think it's also important to stay genuine, like you said. It's okay to drop an F-bomb every once in a while, but I like your approach to being mindful of that stuff. So finally, let's come to the big question, like what we do every time we have a new guest on this show. I ask them, what is one thing that you feel like you could give to everybody, that you could tell everybody that might be listening to this now, whether it's your fans, people discovering you for the first time, or anybody else that might be in the know about Justin Wong? What is one thing that you feel like you could give to them that they could take out of this episode that you could tell them?
I would say, obviously, if you want to be part in the gaming community, don't put all your eggs in the basket. Like, obviously, you want to have a backup plan if you're going to take this like to the next level. Like, don't drop out of school, don't quit your job, and to just like start playing 24/7. Like, just treat it as a hobby, because when you think about it, video games are made to be fun. And when they first came out, people just wanted it because they wanted it to play, enjoy it with your friends, and just make it as like that hobby, that cool new hobby that people want to do in terms of gaming, right? You have barcades, you have LAN centers, online play is so good now. You get to play with your friends over the internet and just chat with them. Have a really good time. Don't stress yourself out when it comes to playing video games, because they should not be stressed out unless you're playing a really hard game like an NES game, or like a Cuphead type of game, or like a Boshi type of game. But it should always be for fun. You should not think about putting all your financial aspects into it because you want to be a pro player. Like, if you just play as a hobby and you're good, your time will come.
I think that's some awesome words, some good real talk right there from renowned Street Fighter player Justin Wong, competitive player. Justin, thank you for chatting it up with me. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate it. Well, now, where can everybody find you right now on social media? Where are you at?
So you can find me on Twitter at jwong with 3 Gs, Instagram jwong at 3 Gs, and facebook.com/fox.jwong or twitch.tv/jwong 3 Gs.
Awesome. Is there any competitions that you know of immediately, what you're going to be appearing at anytime soon?
So my next competition, I'll be at Evo Japan, end of January. A lot of people are going to be there. like mostly Japanese players, but a good amount of like people from USA. So, you know, first time that Evo is actually trying to do an event in Japan. So that's gonna be cool. Right now, they haven't announced the Pro Tour yet, so we don't know what's gonna be like the first major Capcom Pro Tour event for the new arcade edition Street Fighter 5. But I'm pretty sure it'll be final round. So if you guys in the US gonna be at final round in Atlanta in March, I'll see you guys there.
Awesome. Good luck at everything that you're part of whenever you head out there to Japan or otherwise. Sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. But definitely, guys, thank you, Justin. Check out all the links that we have in the description box below or down below in the website, so you guys go directly to all the links and the places that Justin had mentioned before. Make sure that you guys leave a like on this video, subscribe to the Koalition's YouTube channel for all our videos related to TK Spotlight, gameplay videos, and other podcast shows that we have here on the channel. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys have any suggestions of other guests you guys want me to bring onto the show, let me know down below in the comments section. We will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.